with all of that global market action, how are things positioned for our own markets? Our research team is joining in with the trade setup, the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and of course the setup on the F&O side of things as well. Vinny first up joins in to get us all the market cues we need to watch out for. Vinny, good morning. Gift Nifty pointing towards a subdued start, but what are the cues we need to keep in mind today?
Absolutely, a subdued start maybe is what we are watching out for, given that yesterday also the market closed near the day's lowest point. Sensex was down 625 points, Nifty was down 175 points as well, and mid-cap though, we saw that outperformance coming in there. FIIs, they continue to be buyers, 348 crores as FII buy, while domestic buyers were always around 10,000 crores in terms of buy. Yesterday, a lot of block deals were also there, so that impact also comes in terms of these numbers of FIIs as well as DIIs. But overall, what we're watching out for in terms of cues, we saw a rebound that came in the US consumer confidence data as well, which you all highlighted a short while ago. Earnings also we are watching out for. Cummins is reporting its numbers, IRCTC as well as SAIL, and industrial production data on the domestic front will be key to watch out for. There's going to be the FOMC meeting minutes also, which will be coming out. So that is also what we're keeping an eye out on. Though right now, in terms of the handover that we had from the US market is positive, Nifty implied open indicating a muted start for the Indian markets.
Indeed, a muted start for our own markets, almost at similar levels as to where we ended yesterday. But that does not mean that there's not going to be any stock-specific activity. And Ramakshi is here to highlight all of those stocks. Ramakshi.
Well, Hormaz, let me first start off with a few earnings reactions. Then Bharat Dynamics will be in focus today. Strong revenue growth of almost 41% is what the company has reported in FY25. This is well above the guidance of 20 to 25%, but profitability has taken a big hit. FY25 margins declined by almost 850 basis points year on year to 14%. This is much below the stated guidance of almost 20%. In the fourth quarter itself, the margins dipped sharply from 37% to around 17%. The order book, however, is strong at 22,700 odd crores. LIC, on the other hand, reported a good set of numbers. New business premium came in at 70,000 odd crores. This is above what the street was anticipating. Total APE as well at 18,850 odd crores came in above expectations. The VNB margin, though, at 18.75% came in slightly below what the street was anticipating. NMDC's revenue saw an uptick of 8%. This has come in above what the street was expecting. The margins have contracted to 29.3%, and this is slightly below what the street was expecting, and the net profit is a miss as far as the street's expectations are concerned. Hindustan Copper's revenue saw an uptick of almost at 29%. Margins have declined to 36.5%, but the net profit has seen a very strong growth of almost 51%. EID Paddy's revenue saw an uptick of 22%. The margins have contracted by 7.8%, and the net profit is seeing a very strong uptick of almost 30%. And lastly, keeping an eye out on ITC as well, because British American Tobacco is likely to sell 2.3% stake in the company at a base price of 400 rupees per share. But moving on, then we now have Mangalam, who is joining in with cues from the F&O space. Good morning, Mangalam.
Good morning. So if you look at the markets yesterday, they were selling, but it was at the end of the day consolidating for the frontline indices. The broader markets doing slightly better. And what was interesting about yesterday and day before's trading session is yesterday's the lows were bought and day before trading session, the highs were sold. And all in all, the market has been respecting the range. If you look at it, on May 27th, the low on the Nifty was 24,704. On May 26th, the high was 25,079. What have we been talking about? Nifty is support between 24,650 to 24,700 and supply between 25,50 to 25,100. And that's exactly what where the Nifty was. For the Nifty Bank as well, we've been talking about 55,000 to 56,000 as a range. And that's what yesterday's low and day before yesterday's high indicate. The India VIX has been rallying, so that tells you that volatility, despite the market consolidating, is still on. Yesterday's cash market flows data will not tell you the picture of the overall market because it was skewed by a couple of large trades. So DI has bought 10,000 crores, BFI has 348 crores. Large trades were Interglobe Aviation and PG Electroplast. However, the FI sold big in index futures. After 3 trading sessions of buying, they sold about 3,000 crores in index futures, where they added 14,000 short contracts. So it wasn't as much of long unwinding as it was of short addition, and most of those shorts were attributed towards the Nifty itself. 2,700 crore worth, the 2,900 crore selling was towards Nifty futures. It could be on account of the next month series because this is the expiry week. So perhaps it's on account of rollover, so we'll keep an eye out on that. But nevertheless, if the market holds on to lows and highs, we may see some of these positions being unwound because we have rollovers at 60% so far, and the FI longs have dropped to 31%. The other thing that may support the market right now is the put call ratio, which has now moved to the lower end of the range at 0.82. 24,800 call and 25,000 calls extremely active. 24,800 put equally active as well. Watching out for a bunch of stocks today. We have Chambal Fertilizers, Hindustan Copper, Manappuram and Titagarh, all of them coming out of F&O ban. RBL Bank is the one that still stays in F&O ban. Broad point for the Nifty, 24,650 to 25,100.
Well, thank you so much for those insights, Mangalam. But